Alright guys, so now that you've heard that, let's get started on replicating it. The first thing you'll want to do is download the pack in the description below, which will have all the samples and presets used in this tutorial. Once you've downloaded it, extract it with WinRAR or any extraction program, and just leave that folder on your desktop there. Once you load up FL Studio, you want to bring your BPM down to 105, and then we'll add in our first plugin. So right click on here, go insert, and we're going to add in our first Silent 1. When that loads up, you're going to want to go to Menu, Preset, Load, then find on the desktop the Jarno RnB tutorial, and select RnB Synth 1, which will sound like. And let's go ahead and make our tune. So the tune we're going to go for today is quite simple. So we'll build that together. Pretty straightforward. And then straight away we're going to right click and insert another Silent 1. And we're going to load up our second sample. So, our second preset. So menu, preset, load, and then select synth 2. And that'll sound like. What we'll do is we'll copy and paste these in. So we'll grab this, highlight this channel here, Control C, click below it, Control V, and then we'll go into our project here. We'll go Control A to highlight it all, and we'll drag it up 1 octave first, and then up 7 semitones after we've gone 1 octave up. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So you've got a 7th. So together. That's what this one sounds like. That's what this one sounds like. Together. Okay, next thing to do is we're going to add it to a channel. So make sure that both of these are highlighted. Hold down the shift button and you can select which ones you want. So we want to select both silents, and we'll open up our mixer. Once you have the mixer open, select an empty channel and then hold down Control and press L and it'll link it in. So now if we play it back, it's quite full. So we'll bring down the volume a little bit. So we're sitting at about negative 15 decibels here. The reason for keeping the volumes nice and low is that the more sounds we add, the less possibility of them ducking beneath each other, and it keeps your mix as clean as possible. So the lower you can keep your sounds for each as a mediary, the better it will be. Next we'll add in our parametric EQ2, because we actually want to take away the bass and keep majority mids to high range of the sound. So if we play it back, that's what we've got the sound with now, but we're going to change that. So we'll right click on the number 1, go to Order, Steep 8, and that'll make you have a nice steep slant on your low cut here, and we'll start messing with it. So you want to make yours look similar to what I'm doing here. And let's go a little bit more. Do a steep on the top, and then we're going to push our mids a little bit too, so we get a bit of a bit more on the flat mids there. And then we're going to grab our main level, and we're going to bring this hump just below the 0 dB line, because we don't want to be pushing any frequencies. Just like so. We'll play it back. And now we can bring our volume up a little bit. Cool. Next thing we want to do is add in a limiter. So we'll go to slot 2, and we're going to add in a limiter here because we've got quite a thick top on these synths, and we want to chop that off to keep the volume nice and low. So playing it back, you can see that there's quite a nice spike on here, and that's causing our volume reading to be at about negative 12, and we want to flatten the tops out. So we'll bring our ceiling down, which is this green line, so it just is cutting off the tops here. Bit further up actually. So just cutting the tops here. You can see we've got a nice flat line just under 12 there, which is beautiful. Next we're going to add in our reverb 2, so go to slot 3 and add in a fruity reverb 2. And just follow what I'm doing here inside this reverb. So decay is going to go to 1.2 seconds, our wet's going to come down to 30%, Our high cut's going to go all the way up, and our damp's going to go all the way up. Our size is going to go all the way up, and our low cut's going to come up to about 1000 Hertz. And let's play that back. A little bit more decay time, 1.5 seconds, and then our wet will come up to 35. Cool, so that's pretty much a sound that has been sorted. Next we're going to move on to our bass. So we'll insert another silent one again. And this time we're going to go to menu, preset, load, and we're going to bring up the RnB bass, which is pretty heavy. Now, what we're going to do with this one is we're going to follow basically the same bass line that we have in here, except for one difference. We're going to start at A4, and then we're going to bring it down. So it should look something like this. Oh, we're just going to solo that, so turn off these green lights here and go back into the playlist. We're going to fill out these notes so they're nice and full. All together now. And then the same thing again, we're going to link this to a mixer channel. An empty one, of course. Control L, bring it in, and then levels. So the level's pretty good in that one for starters, but let's get into an EQ on that bass. If we want to solo any channel on the mixer, we can just right click on one of these green dots and it'll solo that particular channel. So we'll bring up this EQ2 and we're going to do the same. We're just going to put a steep 8 on the one, bring it right to the corner, and we're going to do the same with the other end, and then let's start messing with it. A little bit more low. A little bit of crispy mid, low mid there, and we're going to chop the top off. Again, we're going to bring this down. So you should roughly have a similar outlook on your EQ as I do here. Okay, and because it's being a bass, we don't want to put any reverb on it or anything like that. So we're just going to put an EQ to clean it up a little bit, and we're going to leave that as is, and we'll move on to our kick. Next, if we use the left browser inside FL and we go to the desktop and find the Jarno RnB tutorial, you will find the RnB kick hiding in here, which we can drag and drop into either an empty channel or just below it to create another one. So with the RnB kick, what we're going to do is we're going to set up a very simple, just keep it on C5, so nice and flat, and we're going to put a kick on every time the bass comes in or the notes come in. So one here, and then again there's obviously one here. Then there's a little triplet, but we're not going to do 3 kicks like this because that's how the bass comes in. We're going to just do one here, and then one here. Okay, so let's go and open up our sampler window, which will look something like this. Now you'll notice with the kick here that there is a very large heavy punch, and it's a bit lengthy, and we don't want that. So we'll use our out fader of the sampler in here to adjust that. I'm going to bring this right up, probably to about 70%. See what we've got. Maybe say 60% here. It's pretty good. And then we're going to make sure that that is also linked to a channel 2. So that comes through here. Next thing we're going to do, as of course, as I always do, is add another EQ in, and we're going to mess with the punch. Now we're going to put again a shelf on each end like so, steep 8, and let's push some of these low frequencies up. Just giving it a bit more meat in this low end. And it's got quite a raspy top end, so we want to cut that off quite a bit and just slope it out. Pretty happy with the way that's sounding. And one of my favorite adds is to add a camel crusher. If you don't have camel crusher, you can use any compression software. Just for the purpose of this, we'll use a Fruity compressor. And the preset we're going to go with is go to presets and then go to light, and then we're going to bring a few adjustments to this one here. Start with the ratio, bring it up to 1.4, so 4 to 1 ratio, my mistake, and the threshold down to -12, and then again we can push to about 2 decibels. Play that back. And then we're going to bring our volume down so that it's sitting just under -9 BPM. Sorry, decibel reading in there. Cool. Now we're going to go on to the sidechaining part with the kick. Now you can use all sorts of sidechains here, but we're going to use the peak controller. So we're going to go to slot 3 here, and we're going to find Fruity Peak Controller, and that'll bring up this window. Now follow what I'm doing here. You're going to put the bass up to 10%, the bass on the LFO up to 10%, so these will both be on 10%. And then we're going to mess with our tensions at a later time. We're just going to do something else first. We're going to go to our synths here, and we're going to go to one of the open slots and add in a Fruity Balance. And that'll look like so. We're going to right click on the volume knob, we're going to go link to controller, and under internal controller you'll find peak control plus peak plus LFO. And from there we go to the mapping formula area and we go inverted. And make sure that remove conflicts is not accepted, so this should not be highlighted, and we click accept. And we repeat the same process for the bass. Fruity Balance, once we bring that up, we right click, we link, we go to internal controller, we select peak plus LFO, and we go to here, we go inverted, and make sure that that is not highlighted. And we click accept. Now, you'll notice whenever the kick hits, the volume is dropping and rapidly pumping back up to 100% after the kick has finished. So, if we go back to our kick and we can adjust our tensions here, we can actually see how much effect that the kick has on the bass. So for example, if we play this bass, if we boost this tension all the way up, you can hear it, right? If we take it all the way down, it's basically doing nothing. So we don't want it too much because we don't want it to pump out of that too much. So we'll just start messing with the tension until we have it perfect. And we're going to cut out that kick. I didn't want the double one there, so we're just going to have a single running through like so. Looking at 25% tension on both is pretty good for me, and the synths will also be affected by that. Cool. So now we put it all together, but we want to boost this synth volume now. And make sure our limiter is right on the tips of these. We might bring our tension back to about 15% just to give a bit more breathing room. That's better. Let's add our next element in, which is our snare. So same again, we go to desktop and we find our samples and we drop in the snare. So our basic snare roll will be every quarter. So we want that to fit, every half beat, half bar. And it's really quite loud, so the first thing we'll do is we'll link that to an empty mixer channel as well. And we'll bring that loudness down to about, I'd say about just over 15. So if we play it now. Bit more volume. Alright, Alright, now we can start messing with our snare roll and see if we can make something a bit more exciting. So let me have a mess with this and see what I can come up with. Give me 2 seconds. Alright, so I've built something here, and you can see in this control velocity window here, there's a bit of stuff going on. So let me just explain how this works. I'm going to solo that, and I'm going to play this back for you. So you can hear some of these snares are more powerful than others, and that's controlled by the velocity window down the bottom here. So I can modify how loud each of these snares are going to sound. So a perfect example is if I keep these all flat and play it back, you can hear that. They're all the same volume. And this velocity, we can adjust it to make it sound. So I want it to build to about, close to half volume, and then bam, 100% volume. So it sounds like it's sort of rolling. It's like a snare roll. And the more exaggerated, we can bring it down really nice and low. But I want it to be quite influential on this, so we're going to keep it here. Then together with the kicks, we'll get something like this. And all together now. Just going to take that one out, it's a little too much. Moving on, let's go to our hats. Before we do go to hats, usually I would EQ this snare, but it's pretty much perfect the way it is, so I don't touch it. But if you wanted to take out a few frequencies, you could do that. But let's just go into our hats now. Now we're going to load in 2 hats here because there's 2 different types that we're going to mess with. And we're going to do first by building our hat roll. And that's pretty easy way to do that is we're just going to go into our piano roll and just start messing with it. Let me see what I can come up with, and then we'll get started on how I worked on that one. Alright, so this is what I've come up with here. If we play it back, it's pretty straightforward, and just a little bit of a glitchy up to again on the hats here. But what I want from these hats is to not have quite a long trail of sound like a reverb that it has on it currently. So if we solo it, you can hear this. There's like a reverb on that, and I can cut it by doing this on the out, but it's not quite doing it exactly how I would want it to. This is where we're going to go into the envelope editor inside the sampler, and this is a very, very handy tool for producing. It's this tab up the top here. If we click on that, it'll bring you up to this window. And the envelope is what we're going to mess with here. We can either turn it on, like so, or we can just adjust one of these values and it'll turn on automatically. Follow what I'm doing here. Attack goes all the way down. Hold, all the way down. Sustain, all the way down. Release, all the way down. And then a decay, really nice and short. So now if I play it back, bring it out more. You can see what it does there. And if I wanted the whole sound to play and then cut quickly, I could do that too. But I want to hold all the way down so that it's got a nice quick tip hat that we're looking for. Now if I play it back, pretty awesome sound that we've got there. Next we're going to add in our second hat, which is a nice open hat. And this is basically just going to be on every fourth that we have. Now sometimes when you load up sounds, they might have the velocity settings from a previous one that you selected. So just make sure that your velocity is always at 100% or wherever you want it for that sound. So if I run a 4x4 on this, and next we're going to insert these into a channel, but we're just going to do them individually because we've got a couple different types of sounds going on there. We'll bring these hats down a wee bit, and the other one's down quite substantially. Now there's one thing you'll notice with these hats is that they're actually off in pan, so you can see the majority of the sound is actually on the right hand channel. So let's fix that. If we solo this hat here, and we use this knob here for adjustment, we can adjust pan left and pan right. And because it's slightly right, we just want to pull it a little bit left until it levels up the sound. Pretty much perfect. And then we'll go to the other side and we'll do the same thing, which is the second hat here. Pretty much perfect there. All together again. And then we'll bring our synths back in and have a listen. Pretty awesome start. Now the next piece that I want to go on to is the vocal chops and chopping up a female vocal stem. So the first thing we'll do is we'll make a little catchy sort of piece to fit with this tune, and then we'll also make an atmospheric layer as well. First thing you'll add in though is a SliceX plugin, which comes stock with FL Studio. So we load in SliceX and it looks something like this. Now when you load this in, you want to go to, again, desktop and find my folder here. And there'll be one that says female vocal stem, and we're going to drag and drop it into here. But before we do that, we're going to deselect auto dump here, and then we'll do that drag and drop. So you'll see that markers have already been made on this, but we don't want to follow what markers are on there. So if we just drag across the whole thing, so it's light up red, then we go to this little regions option here, and then we go delete, it'll get rid of them all. So this is the little sample that we have in here. And there's a little bit of extra pieces in there, but you can have a listen yourself. So let's take some cuts of this and see how far we go. I'll teach you guys just how to do a cut. Basically, you'll want to double click somewhere, so you've got a nice red line like so. We'll zoom up with the scroll wheel. For example here, oh, you're going to have to click play. Say we want this part here. If we put a line on here, so it's lit up where we want it, and we press the add remove marker region, which is pretty straightforward. Make sure the line is on there and hit that button, it'll create a marker. Then at the end of the sound, which you can see it trails off here, add another marker. Now if we zoom in on this region, like real close, we can adjust our markers to where we want them. We'll do the same with this side, so we probably want it about here, and let's play that back. You can right click in the middle of these markers here to hear just that clip there. You can hear if you rapidly click this loop, this little clip we've made, there's a bit of clicking happening at the start. We can get rid of that by going to Tools, declick in, and we'll also just declick out for safety. It is still a little bit there, but you won't hear it back when it's playing later on because it'll be playing through the piano roll. And let's just go through and just find little bits of the sound that we like, which we can take for any sort of chop. So just make as many as you can, so we have more options to go through. I'm going to go make a whole bunch of chops, and then we'll get started on making a wee tune there. Alright, so I've made some chops here, and these are the ones that I have come up with. We've got this chop for the number one. Next. Next. And then finally. So if we take those chops, once we load up our piano roll, you'll find that the markers will have linked in our chops. So you'll notice that if you've made a start and end to it, so the marker 1 will make the sound, and the marker 2 will be the trail of that, so the parts you don't want. So it'll be the odd numbers, 1, 3, 5, 7. And from there, we can make a little tune. So we'll just solo our synth so we can go from there. And let's have a listen to what we can make. Pretty happy with that one there. So if we play that back, you'll notice the volumes are a little bit different. So we're going to try and level those out a wee bit. So the first one's a bit quiet. And also that first one, it's a little bit off pitch, so we can fix that. And I'll show you how. If you go to the control section here, look, if I roll over it, the velocity part lights up. If I click on that and I go to note fine pitch, I can then adjust these manually. So if I play it back, and then I go up, all the way up, so each of these lines is a semitone, down, pretty funny. So if we then go to this little option here, which is your zoom value, and we just go one notch up on our scroll wheel, we can then adjust this one. So play it back with our synths. So we go back into a fine pitch and do the same thing again, and then just play it back until we feel it's right. Pretty happy with that. Now if we load this into a channel as well, one of the mixers, Control L, and we solo it. So play this loop back here. Now we're going to add some reverb to this and a little bit of delay. So first thing we'll add is a fruity reverb too, and you're going to want to just follow what I'm doing here. High cut, we're going to smash that all the way up. Same with the damp, all the way up. Size, all the way up. Low cut up to 1000 Hertz. Decay is going to stay at about 1.5 seconds, and our wet will come down to 30%. And then next thing we're going to do is get a stereo separation, and we're going to pull it all the way to the left at 100%. So if we play that back, the difference between stereo separation is you'll hear it like this, the reverb, or this way. You can tell the difference. It's like mono versus stereo. So we play this back now. We'll bring our wet down to 25, and then we're going to add some delay here. We're going to add 57 milliseconds of delay, or 59. Then we're going to add in our reverb 2, our delay 2, fruity delay 2, which will look like this. And then again, follow what I'm doing here. Volume we're going to bring down to just in between these two notches here. The feedback volume we're going to bring down to the same option. A cut just to that second notch. Our offset is going to go up to 202 milliseconds. Ooh, as close as we can get to it. And then our time stays at 3. So if we play that back, we've got a nice left, right bounce because of the offset we've got there. So if we play this back, and then we're going to go to slot 3, and we're going to add in a parametric EQ2, and we're going to EQ our sound as well. So we're going to do what I usually do, which is a step 8 on each end, and let's play that back. Cut these lows we don't need. Push a little more highs, and a bit of mids. Then we're going to bring that notch back down, and let's play everything together. So we'll delete. So we'll solo everything, so everything's highlighted here, and we'll play that back. You can bring the volume up a little bit on that female vocal stem. Now the final piece is to add a vocal atmos layer. Now an atmospheric layer is super important when it comes to any sort of track. It's a sound that will sit in the background almost the entire song, or only select parts of the song you won't hear it, and it's hidden. You don't focusly notice it, but it's there, and it fills out empty areas of the track that need to be filled with something. Now if we right click on our slice 6 here, which says female vocal stem, and we click clone, it'll make an exact clone of that. Now I know from the sounds that I'm hearing that this sound here should be the root key of this track. So if we play it back, I was wrong, it's the one down here. So if we loop this as a quarter every time, we will get this. We can either do that, or we can have a half beat, which would sound like this, which we'll probably go with. And once that is like it is, what we'll do is we will right click and solo that, and we're going to link that to its own channel as well. Now we want the effects and everything more or less to stay the same as this first one, but we're going to change a few things to it. So I'll show you a quick tip on how to copy, more or less copy the settings you have for one and display it on another. If I go to female vocal stem and I make sure the one I want, I highlight that, I right click and go file and go save mixer track state as, and then I go for me RnB tutorial female vocal, and then enter that in. That means when I go to the next track on the beside of it and I right click and I go file and I go open mix track state, that will be the first thing that it comes up. Or I can scroll and find RnB tutorial female vocal, double click that, and it'll preset load up everything that was on the previous channel. So the same effects and everything for that is there, and it's handy if you've got you add a synth in and you don't want to have to redo all of the effects or link one to another. You can just add another stem in and do that way, and then you can adjust them individually. So what I'm going to do now is turn this sound into an atmospheric sound. So if we play it and just watch what I'm doing here, our wet's going to come up to about 60%. So you hear this on the reverb for starters. And our dry, we're going to bring down to about 70-75%, something like that. And our damp, we're going to bring down to 16,000 kilohertz on both. Now we go to our delay, and we bring our dry volume down to just under that notch there. A bit more. And then we're going to boost our input up to basically straight up and down, same with the feedback. And now we have. Next thing we're going to do is bring this volume level right down. Now if we unsolo everything, and all we'll do is we'll turn off this vocal stem, the one we just made, the one with the atmosphere, and we play it back. Okay, and instead we put it on now and have a listen. Take it away. Back in. It's a very simple addition, but it fills out tracks massively, and sometimes you can have a couple different atmospheric things going on in the background. Essentially, that is the end of the tutorial. That is how you make a very basic RnB beat and making it nice and clean. If you want to boost your volumes post making this, it's quite low, but we like it nice and low so the mix is clean. Go to your master, and in slot 1, just add yourself a limiter and just smash that gain up until the sounds hit flush with the ceiling on there, and then you have a nice loud mix. Well, there you go. If you enjoyed this tutorial and you learned something, please do drop a comment and hit subscribe. It does help me out a lot. If you have any questions, drop them down too. Send me messages. If you want to use this track for your own use, go for it. You just have to give me some credit. Just say, link this video inside your description if you post a track and say took the idea from here or learnt from here. That would be greatly appreciated. But thank you to all you guys. You guys keep me going. I'm going to keep pushing out tutorials for you guys. Every month I'm going to be dropping a new one, so stay tuned. I'm going to try to do a different genre every month, and then I'll go into some more professional mastering type tutorials, and we will go from there. So thank you guys, and check out some new music I've got coming out soon. Peace.